To do the Turkish cast on for my magic loop socks, you're going to start out by making a slip knot with your yarn. The slip knot is an anchor for the cast on and is not counted as a stitch. Do not remove it until I tell you to. You're going to place both needle tips in your left hand parallel to each other so that one needle is on top of the other. So here they are parallel. I'll just turn them up so one is on top of the other. You're going to place the slip knot on that bottom needle. You're going to bring your working yarn from the bottom of the slip knot and back behind both needles. So here's the slip knot, and I'm bringing my working yarn behind the needles and to the top. You're going to bring the working yarn over the top of the needle towards you and wrap your yarn around the needles 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you can see that they are wrapped evenly but not so tight that I can't move my needles, so not death grip tight. Then you're going to take your yarn and place it between the 2 needles. So it looks like you've got 8 and a half. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, I didn't have 8. All right, one more round. There's my 8. So I have 8 and a half wraps. And the purpose of putting it in the middle there is to lock it in place while we do the next cast on for the second sock. So we're going to repeat that process. Take the second slip knot and place it on the bottom needle, the same needle that has the first slip knot. If you need to, snug it up against the needle. Then you're going to bring that yarn down and behind the needles and then wrap it around 8 times. So there's my 8 times. Now I'm going to bring it up like I'm going to wrap it a 9th and slip it in between the needles so it looks like I have 8 and a half stitches. So here's my Turkish cast on for the 2 at a time socks. We're ready to knit the first row and create our very tip of the toe stitches. You're going to pull out the bottom needle, that's the one with the slip knot, and you're going to elongate it with your right hand so that when you pull it out, it would have enough cord to knit into the needle in your left hand. That loop that we made, that half loop, is now kind of hanging free and loose. You're going to let it fall behind, but you can see I've got my finger holding it to the back of the needles. If you forget and it drops, that's fine. Just bring it behind and hold it against the needle. And now you're going to take your right hand needle and go into that first loop. Take your working yarn, lay it over that right hand needle and draw a loop through. It's going to look funky like this. Slip that old stitch off and continue knitting into these big loops. You should have 8 of them. Okay, when you're done, that's what it will look like, and your slip knot is on the cable. Slide these down just a little ways, keeping them on the needle tip, and cue up the next sock. you're going to take that half wrap and just lay it behind, holding it against the needle. It kind of closes that loop so that we can knit it. Take your right hand needle, go into that first stitch. You can see when I do that, my working yarn goes right over that needle, and I'm going to draw it through for that first stitch, and then continue to knit across to have 8 stitches. Do make sure you use the right yarn for the right sock. I've got it easy because I'm using 2 colors. Okay, so there we are. We have both of our toes ready. Now you're going to turn your needles, still looking at those loops. You don't want to see purl bumps. Take your right finger and thumb and protect the needle tip and pull the cable so that the other needle will come into the stitches. When you can't pull that cable any longer, take the needle in your left hand and elongate the needle in your right hand, again, so that it will meet that left needle to knit. Slide the stitches up. For this first stitch, you're going to ignore the slip knot. Go into that first stitch and knit a loop through that stitch. And when you take the old stitch off, you're going to slide the slip knot off. And you can pull that slip knot out now. And nothing untoward happens. So now knit across the other 7 stitches. Okay, again, you're always looking at the knit side. I'll slide that down a little bit so it's still on the needle. You can pull out a little more cord if you want, just don't lose the cable on the other side. Now we're going to do the second sock. Cue those stitches up. Go into that first stitch, ignoring the slip knot. Wrap your yarn around your right hand needle, draw that loop through that first stitch after the slip knot. When you slide that old stitch off, slide the slip knot off, and then continue across the remaining 7 stitches. Okay. There's my slip knot. I can pull it out. And now you're ready to continue on with the increasing for the toe. Keeping in mind that you always want to use the right yarn for the right sock and always be looking at your knit side.